I welcome all of you to today's webinar. Professor B.K. Mishra, Director IIT Goa, Professor Vidyadhar Subudhi, Dean R&D, Professor Sachin Kore, Dean Academic Program and Student Affairs, Professor Somnath Biswas, Professor in Charge Faculty Affairs, Mr. Venkata Rao, Registrar IIT Goa, all the dignitaries present here, esteemed guests, Dr. Sharath Sinha, our speaker for today, my dear colleagues and students. A very good afternoon to all of you, and I welcome all of you to today's lecture on behalf of the National Education Policy Committee of the Indian Institute of Technology, Goa. The title of today's lecture is Use of Technology in Education. It has been organized in pursuance of celebrating 1-year completion of National Education Policy 2020. And our speaker for this afternoon is Dr. Sharath Sinha. Before we start the lecture, let me introduce the speaker to all of you. Dr. Sharath Sinha is a colleague of ours, serving as an assistant professor in the School of Mathematics and Computer Science Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Goa. He obtained his PhD from NTU Singapore in 2013 and BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering from Cochin University of Science and Technology, India in 2007. Prior to joining IIT Goa in May 2018, Dr. Sharath Sinha held various professional appointments as research scientist in Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, research fellow in National University of Singapore, postdoctoral visiting scholar at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Hong Kong, and design engineer Processor Systems Private Limited, Bangalore. Dr. Sharath has received many awards and recognitions, including Best Paper Award nomination, CASES 2018, IEEE ACM William J. McCalla, ICCAD Best Paper Award 2017, Journalist Travel Grant, Young Researchers, Heidelberg. I would request all of you to please mute your mics. Please mute your mics. Yes. So, yes, he has also received Journalist Travel Grant, Young Researchers, Heidelberg Laureate Forum, Heidelberg, Germany, 2017 September. And currently he also serves as the chief editor-in-chief of IEEE Potentials, an IEEE magazine focused on students and young graduates. Now, without wasting any more of your time, I request Dr. Sharath Sinha, please begin his lecture. Dr. Sharath, you may begin.
Before that, Sharath, so their mics are, so requesting all to mute, or whoever is controlling this, mute all, and then Sharath start.
Yeah.
There are still a few mics that are not muted. Mushtaq ji, if you are in control panel, then please mute everybody's mic except the speaker.
Mute kar do. Yeah. Okay, Sharath, do you unmute and start?
Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Sabiha, for the kind introduction, and thank you, Professor Mishra, for helping organize this webinar on the use of technology in education in pursuance of National Education Policy 2020. So a warm welcome to all the attendees here to this webinar. And without further delay, let me share my screen. So I hope it is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is visible.
Great. So this webinar is titled Use of Technology in Education, which is one of the thrust areas of National Education Policy 2020. So in today's webinar, I'm going to talk about what does National Education Policy 2020 say about use of technology in education. It's important to understand what the policy says with respect to use of technology. Then I will talk about technology and education, where I will cover very briefly some points related to life cycle of student education, which essentially means from the point of entry to the point of exit in an education system. So students come in and they go out in a formal education system. Then the core focus is on accessibility of education, which the NEP 2020 also heavily emphasizes on. And this comes from a policymaker's perspective. So as faculty members, as teachers, as students, we are more concerned with the delivery of our courses and conducting of examinations. But from a policymaker's point of view, what other considerations with respect to accessibility of education are important? I will briefly touch upon UN Sustainable Development Goal with respect to education. And then I will also slightly touch upon the role of technology in educational institutional performance and the impact of these institutions on society when they adopt technology. And at the end, I will conclude. So in the National Education Policy 2020, there is, if you read the document, there is a part 3, which focuses on other key areas of focus. And there at serial number 23, you will find technology use and integration as an item. And at serial number 24, you would find online and digital education ensuring equitable use of technology. Now, these two line items relate to technology overall in the field of education. So we will see what are the key takeaway messages for us from these two items. So section 23, as I mentioned, is technology use and integration. And one of the key takeaway messages for everyone is the establishment of National Educational Technology Forum. This forum, the government emphasizes, or rather the ministry emphasizes, as an umbrella organization to discuss, advise, prioritize, and articulate research directions in all forms of technology as relevant to education system. So it's a very comprehensive view of how technology can be used in an educational environment. The focus is on what students learn, how they learn, how teachers are trained, and how administration, which is basically the routine processes that happen in an educational environment. So it is not just about student learning or student outcomes, but it is also about how teachers get trained and how educational institutions can adopt technology to improvise or improve the administrative processes that they are following. Then it also emphasizes on educational software for all purposes at all levels in all major Indian languages for all users. So for all purposes, it basically refers to the use of educational software for course delivery, for assessment, for conduct of various kinds of examinations, as well as for administrative purposes within an educational setting. Then at all levels, this levels refers to the primary education, the secondary education, and the higher education, the three segments of education that we identify with in this country. Then there is also emphasis in doing all this in all major Indian languages. So a lot of platforms that we use today, or a lot of educational technology that we use today is centered around English language. And one of the key takeaway messages from section 23 of NEP 2022 is on expanding the use of Indian languages in those software. And then the emphasis is on all users. So it is not just about users in an urban setting or in an environment where they have access to all different kinds of technology, but also for users who reside in remote areas, as well as Divyang students or differentially abled students. So overall, the scope of educational software has been defined to be at a very broad level. And then this section also talks of strengthening Diksha and Swayam. These are two of the platforms that the government has created. And I thought I will give a very short demo to all of you, because normally we read about these things, but we don't spend time in exploring what these are. So let me give you a very brief demo of Diksha. So this is the Diksha portal. This is for school education. And you can see the agencies which are contributing to the design, development, and application of this portal are essentially school education related agencies like NCERT, CBSE, NEOS, and then the state and UT boards. This also has an app. It comes as a mobile app, and students can download. And it has various kinds of teacher and leadership training modules, lesson plans, and teacher tools, content explanation, assessment, question bank, etc. So this is focused more on school education. You can also contribute to this portal, and that is called as Vidya Dan in the Indian culture, where we donate something. So you are donating your Vidya to this portal, so to speak. And the types of resources that you can contribute are explanation videos for school students, practice questions. You can also donate teaching videos, and experiential learning videos, and lesson plans. So overall, the objective is that typically the technology-based education that you see in higher education institutions, at least some of that can also be moved and adopted for school education systems. So this is the focus of Diksha portal. The other portal is
Sir,
called.
hello. So
Yeah.
the portal are you showing? It is not visible actually.
Is it? Okay. Let me show it one more time. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the Diksha portal that I was talking about earlier, and this is primarily focused on school education. Okay. Of course, the students need to have access to a digital laptop or desktop or a smartphone to be able to use Diksha portal, and teachers can also donate content to this portal, primarily aimed at school education. Now, the other portal that is there is the Swayam portal. Now, Swayam portal is primarily for higher education purpose, and it has courses which come from different national coordinators. So you have AICTE for engineering, you have Continuing Education Consortium, you have IGNOU management from IIMB, NCERT, NEOS are also there. NPTEL is the nodal center for engineering education from IITs and ITs, etc. You can browse the different kinds of courses that are here. For instance, I can go to engineering and technology. I can look at, say, computer science and engineering. And then I can see the various courses that are listed here in computer science and engineering and conducted by or organized by different organizations, and people can enroll. So this Swayam platform serves as an aggregation platform where you can have courses from all these national coordinators described, mentioned, and available for enrollment at one single place. Otherwise, NPTEL also has its own website. So instead of going to individual national coordinator websites, you can come to Swayam and select the course that you want to enroll in. And then there are also ways to contribute courses here, essentially higher education courses. So you can design a Swayam course and contribute to this platform. So there is a lot of emphasis on, let me come back to my slides. So there is a lot of emphasis on strengthening of these platforms, and by way of contributions from faculty members, teachers, and by way of adoption for learning by students. Then the section 23, which is technology use and integration, also emphasizes upon AI and machine learning. And AI and machine learning have been considered as disruptive technologies. The NEP 2020 is not the first time that a national education policy has been framed. So the earlier versions, where the first NEP came out in 1968, then there were in 1986, 1992. But during those days, people could not have imagined of disruptive technologies like AI and machine learning, but today they are there. So NEP also emphasizes on AI and machine learning essentially from a research thrust point of view, to be further emphasized by the National Research Foundation, which is currently under establishment, where the focus in educational institutions could be on core AI research, but a greater emphasis could perhaps be placed on application-based research, as well as establishment of master's and PhD programs in AI plus X, where X could be law, linguistics, art, some other traditional engineering like civil engineering, mechanical engineering, etc. So AI and machine learning from NEP point of view is about conducting research in these areas, offering educational degree programs in these areas, and also adoption of AI and machine learning in the processes. So for student evaluation, for student assessment on a long-term basis, can AI and machine learning be used? So these are the focus points with respect to AI and machine learning in section 23. Now, section 23 was about technology use and integration. And there is a section, which is section 24, which talks about online and digital education, ensuring equitable use of technology. Now, this section of NEP 2020 essentially emphasizes on points like bridging the digital divide in India. And one way of doing so that NEP has identified is by using the Swayamprabha platform. Let me give you a demo of this as well. So this is the Swayamprabha platform, which offers 34 direct-to-home free educational channels. Now, since the last 1 year, or rather more than a year, we have been offering online education to students in engineering institutions, in management institutions, and others. But there has always been this concern about how far internet-based education can penetrate the Indian society or the student population. And this is where this direct-to-home educational channel, which is essentially TV-based learning, was initiated, and Swayamprabha is the platform that allows one to do so. You can see there are a list of channels here on the right. So for instance, channel number 11 is for mechanical engineering and related branches. Channel 12 is for civil engineering and related branches. Channel 16 is for humanities, management, and other branches. And all these 34 channels are also available on any D2H or the DTH platform that you choose. So whether you have Airtel TV at your home or you have Tata Sky at your home, all of them provide access to these Swayamprabha channels. Now here also one can contribute courses in these different disciplines. So there's a whole documentation available for that. But the main idea here is that instead of relying only on internet-based education, if students have access to a television at their home or say in their locality or in the common services center that government has set up at village level in various districts, then they can have access to these educational programs. I'll come back to my slide. So Swayamprabha is seen as one way of bridging the digital divide that exists in India. Then this section also emphasizes on pilot studies for online education by IITs, NETF, etc., where the goal is to conduct a pilot study with respect to content delivery, exams, device addiction. For instance, when students begin to use smartphones, they get addicted with those smartphones, or even with laptops. So how do we offer online education considering the requirements of the education system with respect to content delivery, assessment, etc., and at the same time looking at mental and physical well-being of students? So these pilot studies need to be conducted. Then there is an emphasis on creation of open, interoperable, and evolvable digital infrastructure. This is because the digital infrastructure continuously evolves. If today you are using one application or one software for delivery of your content or of your lectures, tomorrow you may be using some other software, or your own current software may have a newer version. Now, how do we maintain continuity across the different versions of the software, across the different technological solutions that come up over a period of time? So by having an open platform that can interoperate across different devices, across different technological solutions, and that could also evolve as the technology evolves, then that would be better. Otherwise, we would get stuck in some, in a particular technology, and we may not be able to scale it or move out of it to a better technology. Then there is emphasis on digital content creation, virtual labs, gamification of learning, and content archival. So these are some of new virtual labs. There is already a project on virtual labs under the Ministry of Education, but gamification of learning, where you want the students to learn through by way of creating games which for particular concepts, so that they have a better way of learning. And this can only be done when you have a digital way of delivering content or digital way of teaching. This, in general, this cannot be done in a physical classroom. So these are some of the new ideas that NEP has emphasized on. Then, of course, there is emphasis on teacher training, because the teachers also have to be ready for use of technology in education. It is not just the students or the administrators, but the teachers also have to be proficient in the use of technology. And then there is emphasis on agencies like PARAK, which is actually National Assessment Council, and then the National Testing Agency, to design holistic assessment frameworks, keeping in mind online and digital education, okay, not just physical education. So these are the key points with respect to use of technology in education as envisaged by NEP 2020. So I thought I would give you an introduction to these sections so that we have some idea of where NEP stands with respect to use of technology. Next, I will talk about a little bit about life cycle of student education and how technology can play a role here. So this is the typical entry to exit pathway for a student. So initially you have student onboarding. The student joins your institution. Then they have to pay some fees, attend some courses, write some exams, and then there are academic processes. They go through all of these until they graduate. Upon graduation, they get degrees, they get transcripts, and then once they start their higher education, or once they start working in the industry, sometimes there are requests for verification of their degrees and transcripts. So this is tied to the event of student graduation. And following student graduation, the other major event is students becoming alumni, where the institution would like to engage with its student alumni. Now, this entry to exit pathway can be done using pen and paper. It can be monitored using pen and paper, or you can adopt technology. And there are various kinds of technological solutions available to ensure that an educational institution has a smooth entry to exit pathway for students, as well as for the administration, academic administration, to keep an account of all the processes that are happening. Now, in this entry to exit pathway, the typical investors, basically institutions which invest money in adopting technological solutions for the entry to exit pathway, are higher educational institutions, which are degree granting institutions. And then you have international schools and private schools. So there is a growing trend among international schools as well as private schools for adopting technological solutions for managing the entry to exit pathway. But who misses out in when it comes to adoption of technology for managing the entry to exit pathway? It is generally the government schools. Okay. And I just wanted to emphasize before all of you here that the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 transferred education to the concurrent list. So education is no longer a subject on the state list or the union list, but it's on the concurrent list. And there are debates on whether it should be on concurrent list or it should be on state list or it should be on union list, because government schools tend to lose out on on many fronts. But that debate is outside of the scope of today's seminar. But I thought I will just highlight it here. Okay. Next, after this entry to exit pathway, what I want to talk about is accessibility of education and how technology plays a role in making education accessible. And this is also, as I mentioned earlier, this is also a very important point mentioned in NEP. The intent is to use technology for having equitable education and easy access to education. Now, there are various ways of making education accessible. One is through legislation. So at the school level, we have the right of children to free and compulsory education, RTE Act 2009, which says that children in the age group of 6 to 14 years of age should have free and compulsory education. And this is now a fundamental right in our constitution for somebody who is in the age group of 6 to 14 years. Okay. At a higher level, like degree granting institutions and all, it is, I would say, through the National Education Policy, which of course also talks about school level education, but there is no legislation at higher level of education. Now, from a technology point of view, if we talk of accessibility of education, what is required of students? Students need to have a digital platform, which could be a laptop or a desktop or a smartphone, and they should have internet connection. These two requirements, if students satisfy, then one can say that they have access to online and digital education. At the same time, what is required of institutions? How can institutions deliver online education and digital education? At the minimum, they need to have a digital delivery platform, an audio-video digital delivery platform. And I believe most of you would be familiar with Google Classroom, Blackboard Learn, Moodle, etc. This is the minimum requirement. Now, again, when we come back to the accessibility of education from a technology perspective, we require our students to have a digital platform and an internet connection. But when you look at the economy of India in 2020, the per capita income of India was US dollar 1900.7 as per a World Bank report, which is approximately 1.42 lakh rupees annually. And these days, when we have online education, the kids or the students, they need to have a smartphone or a laptop. Now you can imagine that if a family has, say, 2 kids, it becomes financially challenging for them to provide these digital platforms to their children. And this is a bottleneck. And this is where NEP's emphasis on creating affordable digital computing solutions comes into picture. So NEP also understands, the NEP policy has also taken into consideration the financial impact on parents. And there is proposal and emphasis on creating affordable digital solutions so that online and digital education could be provided. And you can also see here that the DTH platform like Swayamprabha, they are a means to bridge or rather to overcome the difficulties that financial issues can create for children to get online and digital education. And what is required by institutions? So institutions generally would ask for funding. So essentially public funding for government institutions. There is government funding for government aided institutions. There is some limited funding for private institutions. There is, I would say, very little funding, but there is funding since the RTE Act that came into effect in 2009. Now, again, from an educational policy point of view, every NEP since 1968 has mentioned that the total budgetary expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP should be somewhere around 6. But if you look at the last 7 years of data, and this is taken from the Economic Survey 2019-2020, this spending has been stagnant for at least 5 years, around 2.8% of government percentage of GDP. And in 2021, the estimate was at 3.5. When you look at total budgetary expenditure on education, this has been somewhere around 10.5 for the last 7 years. And this includes both center and state expenditure. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this is not to show you the shortcomings or lack of public funding. The reason I'm highlighting this is to show to you that something is being done. Of course, more can be done. But with these figures being there, and with these figures being essentially under the control of policymakers and government agencies, we don't always have to say or wait for more public funding to happen. I'll come to that later. But that the government is doing something, more could be done. That impression we should have with us. So when it comes to accessible education from a technology point of view, what can be done? So as I mentioned earlier, NEP emphasizes on affordable computing platform, and there is a very high emphasis on software development for all users, for all levels, for all purposes, in all major Indian languages. Okay. Now, these are the points that NEP emphasizes on, but it is not that these have not been tried earlier or tried before. So what has been tried before? So some of you might remember that in 2011, there was a lot of fanfare about something called Aakash Tablet, which was an initiative of Ministry of Human Resource Development. Now it is Ministry of Education, where the goal was that these tablets would cost something around 3,000, 5,000 rupees, and it could be given to students that they can have online and digital education. There was another initiative, a worldwide initiative called One Laptop Per Child, which was an initiative of MIT Media Lab, essentially its founder. But both of these initiatives did not scale up very well. And there are various reasons for that. One primary reason that I can tell from my point of view as a technology person is that these solutions were never scaling with the way technology was evolving. And some of these solutions did not take into account the kind of courses that students are having and kind of learning that they expect to receive in their education system. So from a technology point of view, specifications of these devices would look good at that point in time on paper, but when it gets rolled out in the next 1 to 2 years, by the time many things have changed. Okay. So that was something about the core focus on accessible education, especially technology-driven education. Next, I will talk briefly about the UN Sustainable Development Goals with respect to technology and education. Here, the UN Sustainable Goal number 4 emphasizes on quality education and what is being done with respect to that. So these items that I have listed here, it's a partial list. These actually feature on the UN SDG document. So the Digital India program, which the government is running, is one of the programs that is seen as a way of achieving the goal number 4. Under this Digital India program, there are 13 pillars. I will not discuss them. There is one pillar which talks about public internet access program, okay, where the emphasis is on helping a large segment of the Indian population have access to internet. Under this scheme, there is a plan to convert about 1.5 lakh post offices as common services center. For those of you who are not familiar with Common Services Center, CSC, it is a scheme under the Digital India program where people can go to a CSC center and get the government documents online. So that is an initiative of a government, in this case, the Government of India. There is an initiative in the private sector, which is called as Next Billion Users, and this comes from Google. So Google is looking at how Google technologies can be adopted or improved for the next set of billion users who would be accessing the internet. Okay. UNESCO on its part has been organizing what is called as Futures Literacy Summit since last year, which focuses on
Kindly mute your mics.
Mute.
Audiences, please mute your mics.
So this Futures Literacy Summit that UNESCO is organizing since last year focuses on how literacy, how people or populations, large populations can become literate in the future, and can we do it at a faster pace. So there are a number of initiatives which are looking at how the Sustainable Development Goal number 4 can be realized. So with that section about United Nations Sustainable Development Goal related to education, I will move on to how technology and education also plays a role in influencing institutional performance and their impact on society. Okay. So it is not just that you need to adopt technology in education because you want to teach your students, or want to train your students. But if you look at the larger goal of educational institutions, which is to have an impact on society, how can that be done if you adopt technology? And I'll here just give some examples. So all of you, I believe, are familiar with platforms, at least you have heard of platforms like edX, Coursera. These platforms made their founding institutions like Harvard, MIT, and Stanford household and universal names in massive online open courses. Okay. Even people who did not know about these institutions, they got to know about these institutions through edX and Coursera. And these days, those of you who are active on platforms like LinkedIn, you will see students from various institutions, whether it is IITs, NITs, state universities, or central universities, or private universities, very proudly displaying their edX and Coursera certificates for any course that they have completed there. So there is there is a growing reputation with these platforms. There is a growing following of these platforms, and obviously their institutions have become very, very famous. And if I might add, they have also become very, they have made also a lot of money. NPTEL is a similar platform that has been quite popular in India. And as I showed you earlier, a lot of courses are offered there. If you look at the difference between these two, NPTEL is, in one sense, we can say a government mandated or a government driven platform, whereas edX, Coursera were market or need driven platforms. Okay, they were not government mandated platforms. Now, the reason I'm showing you this here is so that you understand that institutions and individuals can independently focus on creating value. It doesn't always have to be government mandated. If you think that something could be done, you can do it. And of course, you can seek support from the government and market and other agencies which can help you. But one doesn't have to wait for a direction to come from somewhere, okay, whether it is market or government. So that was on institutional performance and impact on society. I think this is sufficient for today's session. Just one slide on this. Next, I will talk about initiatives in IIT Goa. And the initiatives that I'm going to mention here are some of the initiatives which have some form of alignment with proposals in NEP. Okay, so one of the proposals in NEP is towards online learning solutions. And here in our School of Mechanical Sciences, some students have done a bachelor thesis project on a virtual lab for engines. If you remember, I mentioned earlier creation of virtual labs so that students can learn even from the comfort of their homes or any time of the day, not just when the schools or colleges are open. So students in our mechanical engineering school, they created this virtual lab. In computer science and engineering, there is master's research project going on, which emphasizes on chatbot based Python education. So Python is one of the very popular programming languages, and chatbots are essentially automated conversation partners that you would observe when you go to BSNL website or you go to ICICI website, any major bank website, any major telecom provider website. Even Government of India has chatbot on its website, okay, under its different ministries. So you chat with that bot. It's an automated program to get the information that you need. So there is a project on how to learn the Python programming language and learn it in a very nice way, and also prepare for company interviews. Then there is a project going on towards inclusive education, where doctoral work on making mathematics education accessible for visually impaired students is being carried out as part of doctoral research. At the same time, towards affordable digital platforms, there is some discussion, and hopefully work would also start happening on doing or designing such platforms using Indian processors like Vega. All of you would be familiar with Intel processors. Now, Intel is not a made in India processor. So the government emphasized in capacity building in processor design and fabrication in the country. So we have Vega, the other one is Shakti. Vega is designed by CDAC. And some of you might be familiar with platforms like Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is a very cheap digital platform that is used all over the world. It has a huge fan following all over the world. It's a UK-based foundation that designs and manufactures Raspberry Pi, and it has been hugely adopted for science, technology, and engineering education, in schools. So there is something being pursued in that direction with the Indian processor. Then, as I mentioned, NEP also emphasizes on AI and ML, and not just the research in AI and ML, but also creating some sort of universal education in AI and ML so that more and more people get familiar with what AI and ML is, primarily because these two are being seen as disruptive technologies with the potential to disrupt not only education, but also job and everything perhaps that you can think of. So with that goal, the NSM Nodal Center for Training in HPC and AI has so far coordinated 3 national level online courses in HPC. HPC is high performance computing, machine learning ML, and deep learning DL between November 2020 and August 2021. And more courses are planned together with mechanical and other schools in IIT Goa. So with that, as some inputs from me on technology or use of technology in education, let me come to the conclusion now. So in conclusion, we can say that there is vast scope for technology adoption in education. Okay. And people from multiple disciplines can contribute. It is not just the computer science or the electronics people who can contribute, but people from various disciplines can contribute. And then there are various initiatives around the world already going on, and we can add to those initiatives. Now, technology being widely adopted in education or being, emphasized upon for adoption in education, there is a scope for carrying out new research in learning and pedagogy. So one of the the pilot studies that NEP emphasizes on is essentially about research in learning and pedagogy when you have technology as part of your educational delivery system. Okay, so unlike your classroom-based learning, blackboard and chalk-based learning or pen and paper-based learning, when you adopt technology, how would learning change for students and how would pedagogy change for teachers? So how should teachers, mix and match different ways of content delivery, different ways of assessment, so that the outcome for the students is they have a better outcome. Now, the other important point here is not taking a charity-driven approach, but creating an ecosystem. Technology is always evolving. It is never stagnant. And if we take, one-off solutions and adopt in our institutions, and then forget about the evolution of technology, after a few years, those solutions will become redundant. So whether we are adopting technology or we are creating technology for the purpose of educational institutions, we should look at sustained solutions which can sustain themselves in the longer run. One of the problems with OLPC and Aakash tablets was that they relied exclusively on the technology of that time, in 2011, or OLPC is even older, though OLPC has evolved a little bit in the last 10 years. But there was no pathway to how those solutions would evolve as the technology evolves. And that's very important because we can learn from the way companies operate. The companies adopt a product lifecycle plan, where you launch a product and then you have revisions or versions of the product coming into market. And then there is an end of life of the product, after which you have a new launch. If you don't keep this in mind while adopting as well as while creating technology for education, then we always have a problem of getting stuck in some technology and not being able to move out of it. So that's all from my side with respect to use of technology in education. And I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sharath, for a very informative talk. And audience members, we do have time for a few quick questions. Please, you may ask the speaker if you have any questions.
Sharath, I missed that. What has happened in IIT Goa, you said?
Okay, I'll just show you that. So in IIT Goa, we have, with a focus on online learning solutions, our mechanical engineering department in the Mechanical Sciences School. There has been a bachelor thesis project where the students designed a virtual lab for engines. Then currently in CSE, in computer science and engineering, there is a master's thesis work going on development of chatbot for Python education. Python is a programming language, and chatbot is an artificial, I should say, automated agent or a software human being, let me put it that way, with which somebody can chat and learn about a particular subject. Then towards inclusive education, there is a doctoral research work in computer science and engineering happening on how to make mathematics education accessible for visually impaired students.
Okay. Where it is being done?
So I have a part-time PhD student who is working on this, where he's working on how to make graphs, the understanding of graphs and the drawing of graphs for visually impaired students.
Or visually impaired. Yeah, this is a very good initiative. Yeah.
Then there is a discussion going on towards affordable digital platform using Indian processes like Vega. So this comes from the perspective that there is a lot of fan following of small platforms like Raspberry Pi, which is essentially a UK-based device. But in India, there is nothing which we can call as made in India, and that can be sustained over the next 10 years. So we want to build a digital platform for learning using Indian processors. And then NEP also talks about some sort of universal access to education in AI and ML. So the NSM Nodal Center for Training in HPC and AI, so far we have coordinated 3 national level online courses in HPC, machine learning and deep learning between November 2020 and August 2021. Every course has had more than 500 participants. And then there are more courses planned with mechanical and other schools, rather shorter courses.
I can also add that AI and ML, we are trying to introduce as a core subject for undergraduates. So, and with blockchain.
Yes. Yeah. So AI and ML course as well as a course on blockchain is being planned. So these are the initiatives.
Yeah, this is very good. Yeah. Okay. Any other?
We can add the LAMP course as well as an initiative also. LAMP.
Yeah, LAMP is also. Yeah. So those 2 slides, if you Sharad send it, I'll update. I have some other things also.
Okay.
Yeah. So technology can come to your rescue in many different ways. Here, technology, we mean mostly software, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in that sense, the government portals like NPTEL, SWAYAM Prabha, and all that, they are very good initiatives. But then it just gets complicated when you get into this language, different language mode, and that also they are starting now. And so I don't know. But one question that arises, how can we take advantage of this? Meaning all these portals are there, nice courses are there. And here we are complaining about lack of electives. So can we not allow our students to pick courses from these portals with a faculty mentor?
Yeah, I think that can definitely be done, because these portals also have a large variety of courses. And for our MTech programs, we already have that mechanism in place where the students can take courses from NPTEL. For our BTech programs, we can have that in place. I don't think it is currently there, but I think that can be done. Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Sharon, I have one question regarding this Akash tablet and OLPC. So now it's almost 1 decade, right? You mentioned that in 2011 that initiative was planned. But now after 1 decade, if still I don't see much initiatives in that direction. And you mentioned that one of the important thing why that scheme did not evolve, because that did not plan to cope up with the technological evolution, right? So if someone wants to take it up this time, so what should be the strategy one should take? Because now in the context of NEP, I'm asking, because it emphasizes on the use of technology and in education, which this pandemic also further reinforced in some ways. So what would be your opinion on this?
So if anybody wants to take that up, basically creation of an affordable digital platform for education, the first thing they should identify is what is the technological subset that is applicable or needed for the kind of education that is delivered. By kind of education, I mean the course curriculum and content that is delivered in our schools. If you look at Akash tablet, and it is there in the market, still available in very, very limited quantity if you order online. It is like, it's a very basic platform where you can draw a circle or a rectangle, do play with some animation and all. It's not really designed for the curriculum that is offered in schools. So if one is designing a technology based computing device to be adopted in schools, one also has to look at the curriculum of schools and then come up with a hardware software specification that would satisfy that. And then once you have designed that solution and say manufactured it, that is not the end of your efforts. You have to keep updating your solution as the technology evolves. And this is where I say that platforms like Raspberry Pi, which was initiated in the UK, has been very successful. So Raspberry Pi Foundation has been in operation at least for the past 10 years, and they evolve their solution. It's not an expensive solution. A Raspberry Pi costs around 4,000 rupees, and you can connect it to a monitor and it becomes your computer. And it's powerful enough to run the basic data processing applications, basic imaging applications, basic internet accessing, all of that. So as the developers of a solution, one also needs to have that bandwidth and inclination to pursue the evolution of technology and what changes would be needed in your solution as the technology evolves. Now, whether that can be done as part of a startup or as part of a foundation, I mean, those are some other ways of realizing that extended solution.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, so that was primarily from software point of view, the technological evolution that you mentioned, not primarily from the hardware viewpoint.
You see, hardware also, I mean, if you look at processors, processors also, after 4 or 5 years, the manufacturer of that particular processor will not be manufacturing it anymore. It will have something new. Okay. So there is evolution both in software as well as in hardware. And one needs to be mindful of both of that.